There is a truth that has been waiting for years for someone to tell you plainly, without embellishment, without beating around the bush, without the layer of fake politeness that covers almost every conversation you have on a daily basis. Some of the people who smile at you tomorrow morning hate you. They don't just dislike you. They don't just find you annoying. No, they hate you. With that very absolute and uncomfortable word. And the most disturbing part of all this is not that this hate exists, but that you probably already know it. Your instinct has picked up on it 1,000 times, but your rational mind has filed it away as paranoia, as insecurity, as one of those thoughts that is better not to explore too deeply. Today, we are exploring it. Nietzsche had a way of looking at human relationships that made his contemporaries squirm in their seats. Not because he was cruel or because he sought to hurt, but because he described with surgical precision something that we all experience, but very few dare to name out loud. Resentment. That emotion that lacks the dignity of open hatred or the clarity of declared envy. Resentment is much more sophisticated, much darker, and much more common than you are willing to accept right now. Think about it for a second. How many people in your life smile when you succeed, but something in their expression doesn't quite fit? How many congratulate you with words that sound right, but with an energy that feels twisted? That friction you perceive is not your imagination working against you. It is information. And Nietzsche would tell you that this information is worth more than anything that person has ever told you with words. Let's stop calling it envy, because that term has worn out so much that it no longer conveys the real weight of what we are talking about. What Nietzsche identified, what he called ressentiment, that French word he used deliberately, is something much more complex than wanting what you have. It is an entire emotional architecture built around resentment toward what you represent. Not toward your achievements. Toward you. Toward who you are. And this is where it starts to get truly interesting. Nietzsche argued that resentment is not born in the people who hate you, because you are better than them, in some objective sense. It is born because your mere existence, the way you live, the choices you make, constantly reminds them of something they have given up on being. You are the mirror they cannot break. Every time you do well, that mirror reflects more sharply everything they chose not to do, everything they let die, all the potential they buried under years of perfectly constructed excuses. They don't hate you for what you have. They hate you for what you prove is possible. And that, psychologically speaking, is devastating for the one who feels it, because they cannot attack the logic of your existence. They cannot argue against you. They cannot tell you that you are wrong when your results are right there. So what do? They construct an alternative narrative, a story where you are not admirable, but arrogant, where you are not consistent, but obsessed, where you are not authentic, but calculating. They need that narrative to survive emotionally. Without it, they would have to look at themselves, and that is exactly what they have been avoiding for years. Now, I want you to think of someone specific, someone in your immediate circle, someone who is close to you frequently, someone who knows the details of your life. And I want you to ask yourself this question without running away from the answer. Does that person genuinely celebrate when something good happens to you? Or is there something in their reaction that you have always felt is slightly out of place? You don't have to answer out loud, but you already know the answer. Nietzsche described people driven by resentment as masters of disguise. It is not that they are consciously hypocritical in the vulgar sense of the word. It's not that they wake up in the morning planning how to pretend to love you. The process is much more unconscious and therefore much more dangerous. Over time, they have come to believe their own act. They have convinced themselves that they support you, that they love you, that they are on your side. But at the exact moment when something goes wrong for you, when you make a mistake, when you suffer a setback, something inside them breathes easier. That relief they feel when you fail. That is resentment in its purest form, and I can assure you that you have lived this. There have been moments when you shared bad news with someone close to you, and you caught, in a fraction of a second, an expression that shouldn't be there. Something that disappeared so fast you almost doubted having seen it. You didn't imagine it. You saw it because it is real. Now then, why am I telling you all this? Not so you become a paranoid person who distrusts everyone in their life. Not so you lock yourself in an emotional bunker and decide that loneliness is safer than company. I am telling you because the knowledge of this mechanism radically changes how you operate in the world. When you understand that certain people secretly hate you precisely because you represent something they could not build, that hatred ceases to have power over you. It becomes something that no longer belongs to you. If what I just said has ignited something in you, if you feel there are layers of this that you need to explore much deeper, in my private community, I go straight into those depths that a video cannot reach. Psychology without filters, without the limits of the platform. The link is in the description. Let's go back to Nietzsche because we haven't yet reached the most disturbing part of his analysis. He identified two types of morality operating in people, and this distinction explains exactly why some people in your circle behave the way they behave. He called them master morality and slave morality. And before your mind wanders off to medieval hierarchies, listen to me, because this is absolutely applicable to someone you know right now. Master morality, according to Nietzsche, starts from self-affirmation. It is the psychology of someone who defines their value from within, who says this is good because I value it, who builds their identity on what they want to be and not on what others approve of. They don't need to compare themselves. They don't need anyone to fail to feel safe. Slave morality, on the other hand, is reactive. It is born from resentment toward those who have what they desire. And here is the key that Nietzsche pointed out with a precision that still stings. Slave morality cannot define what is good without first defining the enemy. It needs the other as a negative reference to build its identity. It needs you to be the bad guy, the arrogant one, the one who thinks too much of themselves in order to feel at peace with itself. Do you understand what that means in practical terms? It means there are people in your life whose entire identity depends on you being somehow inferior. If you prosper, if you grow, if you become who you want to be, they have an existential problem. It is no exaggeration. It is literally how their psychological architecture works. They have to find a way to discredit you, to undermine you, to sow doubt where you had certainty, because otherwise their internal structure collapses. And they do it in ways that can rarely be pointed at with a finger. They don't tell you to your face that they think you are a failure. That would be too direct, too vulnerable on their part, too easy to refute. Instead, they make small remarks with a smile. They remind you of past failures as if it were humor. They question your decisions with a tone of worry so well calibrated that it even looks like genuine care. They share your news with a nuance that makes it sound like less than it is. Small incisions. Homeopathic doses of poison. Social psychologist Roy Baumeister has fascinating research on what he calls subtle relational sabotage. that pattern of behaviors that individually cannot be flagged as hostile, but that, accumulated systematically, erode the confidence of the person they are aimed at. And Baumeister found something that will sound familiar to you. The people who execute these patterns are rarely aware of doing it. Their mind has rationalized each small sabotage as a form of care, of realism, of keeping your feet on the ground. This is what makes it so hard to fight. You cannot confront something that the other person genuinely does not perceive as hostile. Trying to explain to them the damage they are doing to you turns into a Kafkaesque conversation where you end up being the sensitive one, the insecure one, the one who sees intentions where there are none. And meanwhile, the pattern continues. Nietzsche had an answer for this, and it was not confrontation, it was elevation. One of his most misunderstood concepts is that of the overman, the Übermensch, and I want you to understand it as he proposed it, not as the caricature that has been made of it. The Nietzschean overman is not the one who crushes others. It is the one who has completely detached themselves from the need for outside approval. It is the one who has internalized their own values so deeply that external opinions, whether of admiration or secret hatred, simply do not operate as fuel or as a brake. Praise does not inflate them, and contempt does not sink them. And that, psychologically, is the most liberating state a human being can reach. Because when you reach that point, what those who secretly hate you feel about you stops mattering in an active way. It is not that you ignore it with effort. It is that it genuinely occupies the same mental space as rain falling on another continent. It is information that exists somewhere in the world, but does not affect your decisions, your peace, your direction. Now then, how do you identify the people in your environment who operate from this place of covert resentment? Because there are signs, and once you know them, they are impossible not to see. The first sign is what I call the loaded praise. It is the compliment that always includes a but or an although hiding between the words. How great that worked out for you, considering how much it cost you at the beginning. I'm so happy for you, although there are people who have been working on this longer. It is the praise that carries a needle inside it. Notice the difference between someone who says, "I am so happy for you," and someone who says, "I didn't expect you to achieve it." Both phrases sound positive on the surface. Only one is. The second sign is strategic absence. These people are conspicuous by their absence during your good moments, but appear with striking punctuality when something fails you. When you triumph, suddenly they are busy, they have other priorities, they forgot to congratulate you. When you make a mistake, they appear with suspicious speed, carrying their dose of, "I told you so," even though they never told you, or, "How are you? Tell me what happened," with an eagerness disguised as concern. The third sign is systematic minimization. Everything you achieve has an external explanation in their narrative. You got lucky. The timing just lined up well. Circumstances helped you. It is never that you worked hard, that you chose well, that you deserved it. Their mind cannot process that your results are the product of your effort, because that would imply they could have done the same and didn't. The fourth sign, and this is perhaps the most subtle one, is the one Nietzsche would identify as the most revealing. Discomfort at your growth. When you share a goal you have with them, something you are building, something you trust in, their reaction is not enthusiasm, but a kind of caution presented as worry. Isn't it too risky? Aren't you being too ambitious? Are you sure it's the right time? Those questions are not care. They are the reflection of a psychology that needs you to stay where you are, so it doesn't have to move itself. Now, I am going to tell you something that might bring more discomfort than all the previous points. You have done this too. Not with the same intensity, perhaps not continuously, but there have been moments when someone in your circle has prospered, and you felt something that wasn't pure joy. There have been moments when someone else's good news caused a contraction in your chest that you don't quite know how to name. It doesn't make you a monster. It makes you a human operating with a psychology that was molded in an environment of constant comparison since you were small. Nietzsche was not pointing fingers at anyone. He was describing the mechanisms that operate in all of us to varying degrees. And the difference between someone who stays trapped in resentment for life and someone who manages to break free from it is not a matter of character, but of awareness. The moment you see the mechanism operating in you is the moment it stops controlling you completely. The real question this philosopher throws at us is not, "Who hates me in secret?" That is the question of the ego, the one that keeps us looking outward, cataloging enemies, constructing useful paranoia. The real question is much more uncomfortable and much more transformative. Whom am I secretly hating? And what is that hatred telling me about what I have not yet built in my own life? Because secret hatred, resentment, is not an emotion that arises from strength. It is always, and without exception, the symptom of a wound that has not been looked at. It is the sign of a repressed desire that has turned into poison because its bearer doesn't believe they deserve to fulfill it. When you look at someone through resentment, what you are actually seeing is a version of yourself that you have not allowed yourself to be. That is what Nietzsche wanted you to understand, not a manual to identify your hidden enemies. That has limited value and also ends up being an exercise that exhausts without illuminating much. What he wanted is for you to turn your gaze toward yourself with the same brutal analytical honesty with which you describe others. To ask yourself honestly, how much of your daily energy goes into comparing yourself, measuring your value in relation to others, needing someone to fail to feel sufficient? If the answer discomforts you, good. Discomfort is the door. And now we arrive at the most important point of everything we have talked about tonight. The one that changes the way you are going to relate to the people in your environment, starting tomorrow. When someone hates you in secret, when that person builds their daily life around resentment toward you, the worst thing you can do is respond with hatred, with confrontation, with the desire to destroy that dynamic by force. That feeds it. That gives them exactly what they need to keep building their narrative that you are the bad guy, the arrogant one, the threat. What Nietzsche would propose, and what contemporary psychology backs up with evidence, is something that sounds almost paradoxical. The answer to secret hatred is authentic indifference, combined with continued excellence. Not the performative indifference of someone who acts like they don't care, just so it is noticed that they do care. The real indifference that is born from being so focused on what you are building that you genuinely have no mental space available to manage the uninvited emotions of other people. You can't fake that. You reach that when your project, your direction, your life truly occupies you. And continued excellence as a response has an unassailable logic. Every time you grow, every time you take one more step toward who you want to be, you don't do it to prove anything to anyone. You do it because it is what you do. But the inevitable side effect is that this excellence becomes completely unbearable for someone operating from resentment. because they cannot argue against it, they cannot reduce it, they can only move away or, and this also happens, eventually be forced to look at themselves. Now then, there are people in your current environment who are never going to do that internal work. They are never going to face what they carry inside. And that is neither your responsibility nor your problem. Your responsibility ends exactly at the edge of your own life. What others choose to do with theirs, including choosing to live in resentment, is completely their territory. But what is yours is deciding who has access to your energy, to your time, to the details of your life. Nietzsche was not a social hermit or a cynic who despised all relationships. He was someone who believed deeply in the quality of bonds over quantity. A few people who celebrate your growth from a genuine place are worth infinitely more than a large circle built on the politeness of resentment. Choose whom you build with. Not who is comfortable out of habit or shared history, but who drives you. Who can sit down to listen to you when things are going well without their posture shifting a millimeter? Who has enough internal solidity to be happy for you without it costing them anything emotionally? Those people exist. They are few, but they exist. And if you haven't found them yet in the quantity you would wish for, part of that work is what you are doing right now. Listening to this, processing these ideas, asking yourself the questions most people avoid because the comfort of not knowing has always seemed safer than the clarity of seeing. If you have made it this far today, and something in this journey has moved you, if you want to go further with these ideas, subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, leave a comment with what impacted you the most, and share it with someone in your circle. Because there are people who need to hear exactly this. And whoever listens to this and truly integrates it starts to detect with a new clarity who in their life is draining them without being asked to. That clarity is priceless. This channel accepts no advertising. None. That means no one decides what I say or how I say it, and that each video exists solely because there are people who value this type of uncompromising content. If you are one of them and want to access the space where I go deeper without any limits, without the corsets imposed by a platform, the link to the private community is always in the description. The brutal truth about the people around you is not that some secretly hate you. You already knew that. The real truth, the one Nietzsche has been trying to get human beings to hear for over a century, is that this hatred doesn't speak about you. It speaks about them. It speaks about what they let die. It speaks about what they gave up on being. And while you keep building, while you keep choosing excellence over comfort and clarity over self-deception, that hatred will keep growing in them because the mirror you are is not going to stop reflecting. Don't cover it. Shine brighter.